couple of months ago, I added a new feature to my Life OS, and everything was great. It tested right, and then 3 days later, all of my automations broke. So how I solved that is what we're going to talk about today. Human in the Loop starts now. How about these special effects, Sash? Let's do it, man. Episode 10. We got up the quality, man. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, brother. Happy Friday. We got VFX.
VFX, man. I mean, I figure this is episode 10. That means like this is full time now, right? Like this is a thing.
Yeah. We're still doing it. We're still doing it.
We are, man.
Yeah.
We are.
Despite all the audio video routing puzzle we have to solve.
It's so funny, right? Like a few weeks ago, if you were following, we talked about how easy it is to manage this, right? AI doing all of this. There's like one skill that generates an episode, another skill that flips it to the next episode. I feel like we spend 5 minutes a week like actually working on the episode. And then every time we hop on and we spend freaking 10 minutes trying to figure out audio. Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I know. And I hear people use this stuff all the time. It's crazy. Maybe it's just me. I'm old,
I don't
brother.
know. Maybe same. Welcome to your 40s, right?
All right. I'm excited about this. So tell me what we're going to talk about, brother.
Yeah. So kind of what I said at the beginning, like, you know, you and I, we've been doing our Claude stuff for a while, right? You got Replit Claude, OpenClaw. I've got Claude, Hermes, Codex. So, you know, I've talked about a lot, the Grove. I've been building my Life OS that does all sorts of things for me. And I added a new feature. And you know how Claude will do when you test it, right? Like all sorts of things. It was great. And then my simple automations, one that I had already had that I was building on top of, those stopped working. So I was like, this can't fly, right? Like, can we get some regression testing, right? So really, you know, thinking about when Renee was on last week and talking about the monitoring that he's doing, I kind of wanted to build on that and say, in addition to the monitoring, like, why don't we dig into like specifically things that I have done after learning stuff from monitoring?
All right.
So that's what it is, right? So
you know, it's such a great point. Just to kind of add, in the software, when you deploy fixes or updates, it's fairly deterministic.
Correct.
And with AI, it kind of changes. It's fuzzier,
correct.
And that fuzziness has to be traced, and it has to be traceable. It has to be monitorable. So tell me how you're doing, man.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, thinking about like the problem statement here, right? It's just as that. You know, it's one thing that this failed, but it's another thing that like I had no idea this failed. There was no alerts other than me I just know that my automations aren't running. Like my main automation, and it's one that really was the first one that I built, and it was around like just my mental health, my sanity. Every morning, right at 8 a.m., I get a prompt. I get a Telegram message that says, "Hey, good morning." And what it does is it kind of resurfaces things that I have recently journaled about, and then it uses those to craft a journal prompt. And I have to answer things, right, of like, hey, how did I sleep last night? Did I journal this morning? Did I read? What are some things I'm grateful for, affirmations, etc. And that runs every day. And I sort of become dependent on that. And like when that doesn't run, it gets in my head, right? So that stopped working. That's the core of everything that I built off of. And except the only reason I know that is because all of a sudden I just don't get those messages. And so then it was digging into like, okay, what actually happened? And you know how Claude will do, man. It's gonna. I feel like I've got a rigorous test skill, and I have a QA agent, and I have a red team agent, and you know I separate context, so they're coming in blind and they're passing things. And literally, what happened was I introduced a feature that moved a file. That's all it did. It moved a file, and there were 671 unit tests that Claude ran, and every single one of them came back green. Have you ever run anything like that when you're building?
Well, not 671, but I have a similar kind of testing paradigm.
Yeah,
and I totally see how that could be sort of effective, like just file location and all the dependencies tied to it. So yeah, okay.
Right.
That happened. And then you didn't get the notification that you get every 8 a.m. And I'm guessing that's tied to a bunch of processes that happen. Correct. All of that had stopped working.
And like, I'm going crazy. right? Like at one point, you and I have talked about this. Like I felt like I was like, tear it all
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
right? Build this back up. The foundation is cracked. Except this issue was after I tore it all down and
Yeah.
rebuilt it. We gave Renee some crap last week when he said that he had his all of a sudden $200 a day moments. I called it a can't remember what I called a learning curve. You said, yeah, that's the tuition. I feel like this is just another version of this, and I'm sure that we all have similar things that happen to us during our AI journey where
Yeah.
we overbuild, we get excited. The dopamine is like flying. We're getting a million like hits. Oh my God, I can build this. I can build this idea. And you just gotta learn from it, right? So it was frustrating for me because I had done all of this work to rebuild my foundation. I did it.
Yeah.
And then this is coming up. And the simplest of automations, at least in my opinion, the ones that have been running for months, no longer
Right.
were working. Right.
Okay.
So the specific issue was around an environment variable. And like part of this stuff is like this, what you're seeing on the screen right here is deeper in the weeds than, if I'm being frank, like I ever really care about. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea this specific issue until I was researching how I was going to talk about this for this episode.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
you and I have talked about that, right? Where it's like the things that I had to care about before, maybe the specific coding language, or the specific method that I was going to call, like I've just turned that over to Claude.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And a lot of that infrastructure, it's kind of a bit abstracted. And are you running? Is it running on a Mac or a Linux?
This is on a Mac Mini.
This is on a Mac Mini. Mine runs on Linux. I literally have never worked on Linux in my entire life, so
I've
don't know.
never worked on Mac. I bought my Mac Mini for
Yeah.
to run this on because I
There
knew
you
it was
go.
the best, right? Yep,
Yeah. And so when it breaks, you kind of have to go figure out what broke. Okay.
correct.
Um,
And
all right.
so we do
So
what I do what everyone I say should do in 2026, where before I would have gone to Google and then maybe I would have gone to
uh
Stack Overflow. But what do we do now when we
yeah.
don't know what's going on?
Yo, Claude, what's
Yo,
going on?
Claude, what's going on, right? So it was a learning step. So for me, what happened and how everything changed for me was um, the same Claude that messed this up was the one that suggested this idea. And
Right.
eventually turned it into saying, hey, like once we see that something has failed, let's now add that as a watchdog so
Right.
that if it
Okay.
fails, now let's go check that every time. And so what's happened is it's sort of like two things have come from this. One, every time there's been an error, every time something has broke, it logs that. And like, you know how AI will use language, it calls it a predicate, right? So I'm just going to call it
Okay.
a regression. So every time something has broken, let's document that. Let's make a note of it. Claude has a regressions.md file that it will log things to inside the Grove. And it will pull from that and it will turn it into a smoke scale. So /smoke. And so really smoke testing is just a collection of regression testing, but specifically against everything that broke. So it started off just doing that. Every time an automation broke, every time there was an error in something that had run previously, every time when I deployed a new feature that caused an error in something legacy, or I should say legacy, something that existing, going to add that regression. It's going to add that as a log to smoke, and then /smoke then gets executed as part of my SDLC, and then it will essentially do this collection of regression tests.
Okay. So as let's say that regression happened, you caught it sort of after the fact, but now you set it up to catch the regressions and document it. Is that
Correct.
happening through like hooks within Claude?
It's not happening within hooks, but you
Yeah,
just got me thinking about like, should I be running this more often, right? Because like as you're
I
talking
see.
in real time, I'm thinking, so I've got my SDLC skills that have slowly been like automating more and more as I continue to build tests or build trust in my operating system, right?
Right.
So traditionally, like I have a /test skill that a lot of
Mhm.
times will get called. We've been saying like Claude and Claw and called, and like I don't know how to talk anymore. It'll get called as part of this, and the way that even like I'm going a tangent, the way that my test has evolved is I now that now gets called as part of Claude Code's goal feature.
Okay.
I know we've
Got
chatted about is goal, but
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah.
that's for a separate conversation. I now pretty much use plan and goal as my main workflows, and then within each of those, it calls my old sub skills, right? Like
Skills.
scope, plan, build, test, deploy, prod, and as part of that, smoke has essentially become a sub skill, if you will. So
Okay.
as part of my
So,
testing package, it will call smoke, right? Once
so
unit testing's done, once QA is done, once red team is done, before it calls it passed and all these
right.
671 unit tests green, hey, let me go now and essentially regression test everything that has broken before. Let me run that again. And I've even evolved smoke to it doesn't now just test things that have broken. It also now will test automations that work to make sure that they
Okay.
still work. Right.
Okay. And is it when you run that skill, so it kind of goes through a process of one, finding the regressions, testing against it, and then testing the working workflows as well. Is that a multi-agentic process where it spins up sub-agents to do that in
Correct.
parallel?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so all that's done, and that's just grown over time. So I have
Okay.
16 predicates on there. Again, fancy word, fancy word. All I know is predicate is like the opposite of a subject, right? But I don't think we're talking grammar here. So
Mhm.
smoke is essentially just again reading in those regressions, both now that are key automations as well as things that have broke, and every time
Mhm.
calling sub agents to do exactly what you said, right?
Setting up.
Validate, do this still work, right? Is this erroring out? We know we've seen this in the past. This is something that needs to persist. Let's kind of check
Yeah.
all of these. And so it has legitimately caught things. Is my
Yeah.
system perfect? Come on, man. I don't even
Yeah.
I gotta ask that question before you do, right? So I can like manage the answer from this because it's always a it's always a work in progress.
It
But I will
is.
say like the amount of trust that I have in my system has gone up tremendously,
Right.
right? From a monitoring
Yeah.
perspective, but then also to like a self-fixing. 'Cause, I mean, I think that's my
Yeah.
goal is not just to trust that it works, but like when something breaks, like, dude, don't tell me
Yeah.
that it's broken. Like, I
Fix
want
it.
to, I want to know after you have fixed it and you have gone through
Fixed
all
it.
this effort, and let
Yeah.
me know if it broke and you fixed it. Do I need to know?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
I build trust, it'd be nice, but ideally, no, right?
Yeah, and this is not a novel concept with AI, right? Like large scale, hyperscale cloud SaaS systems have self healing systems.
Right.
And I was an exchange engineer when it was Exchange 2003 and 2007. It was like you had to manage redundancy and
Crazy, right?
failovers and
Yeah.
disaster. You had to manage it, and you had to build processes where people had to be involved to do it. 2010 onwards, Exchange got better and better. And I think by 2015, it had self healing systems where it could detect. No AI was involved there. This was just
Deterministic.
code.
Yep.
It was just deterministic code. So the logic should apply with more intelligence here, it's like a paradox, right? It's not deterministic, which is why it can fail. It
Correct.
will fail. You should assume that it will fail, and
Correct.
then build things around it that uh, fix them as it fails, document it so the system learns from it. So that's basically exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like the life cycle that you just covered so eloquently in 10 seconds, right? I mean, it's repeating itself. The same reason
yeah,
that
it
like
is.
we had these checks was to apply determinism, is that the noun?
Yeah.
Determinism against humans because humans are going to
Yes.
make mistakes. Let's make it a
Yes.
very clear cut, right? And so now we're back in the same space. It's what you and I have said over
Yeah.
and over again of
Yeah.
like assuming that Claude will make a mistake or choose your own AI path, like they're humans with brains. They're just
Yeah.
but in an incredible skill set, an incredible
Yeah.
brain, but they still mess up. So like, how are we then now doing the same patterns but against agents?
Yeah. And the other thing I keep thinking about now that now you've got your Hermes agent for a few weeks, I've been running a Claw agent, which is always on. The advantage of running that always on agent is autonomy. The more autonomy it has, the surface of failures is much larger.
Correct.
And the more you can do with it, the more it can fail at. And I'm
Correct.
realizing that too. And it goes back to the same kind of, deterministic code, self-healing systems that we have in hyperscale. That's why we had people process tech.
Hmm.
And process was the one that prevented the people from messing up. And technology was fairly deterministic. Now technology is not deterministic with AI,
Yeah.
where you need something like this, where you're not just it's impossible to prevent a problem. If you catch a problem, fix it, document it, then maybe you have a better chance of doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting as you said that because, I for my entire life, since I started learning about AI, have thought I would have grouped AI under tech. But now with
Right.
this,
Yeah, it's
I almost feel like maybe like the AI itself is under tech, but the agents part of this, like
yeah,
that's under people, right?
it has to be.
We have to manage them, and it's I mean, and we're seeing this left and right of just human and agent teams growing, but even like
Yeah,
this is getting really to it of like how we are monitoring, how we are um tasking, how we are trying to automate all of these things. We have to apply that determinism,
yeah.
otherwise bias is going to
It's
kick in, etc. This is interesting, man.
it is, and it's such a great sort of conversation around guardrails and how you can put guardrails. You have to assume that this thing is not perfect, number one.
Right.
You have to assume this thing is very capable, but you have to define the processes and the environment it functions in for it to be capable.
You
And
do.
you got to have watchdogs. And it's funny, you kind of we didn't have a conversation about this before we jumped on, and I've been kind of dealing with the same thing as well, where I'm now having agents manage agents and primary orchestrator agent. How can you spin up clause and then secure clause, manage those fully autonomous agents so you can get stuff done securely and it actually works? And part of it is not just even security, it's just reliability,
Right.
right? How do you make these things to work reliably? That's tough. But hey man, I love that idea of yours. I think I'm gonna take some cues from those skills.
Yeah, it's been, I think really like what I've been talking about today is introducing reliability, monitoring, the beginnings of a self-healing pyramid system, whatever.
Mechanism, yeah.
But
Yeah.
still just using it almost like Claude Code to monitor Claude Code. I know I have
Yeah.
Hermes. I know you use more OpenClaw. It sounds like there might be another episode coming about bringing the same concept, but to manage these autonomous agents. Did I just predict the future here, Sash?
Yeah, man, you just did. So next week we're going to talk about how I use Claude Code, my kind of primary orchestration agent, to build, set up, and manage OpenClaw. And that's two kind of phases. One is managing the Linux runtime because I don't run it on Mac. I run it in Linux VPS. And I have abstracted the runtime from the image of Claw. So that introduces very interesting kind of security paradigm. One angle. The second angle is I have OpenClaw plugged into Langfuse, and Claude Code is actually monitoring how it's doing it. So
Love it.
all of this we're going to talk about next week. And remember, guys, Chris and I never knew about any of this stuff. We just kind of learn as we go.
Learn as you
And
go.
you just kind of have to develop that systems mindset, connect the dots, and just ask your favorite AI.
Ask your favorite AI. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Sash, always a pleasure. Enjoy it,
Likewise,
man.
brother.
And I like this sort of. It's almost like we're little building a series out, right? We had
Right, let's see.
monitoring last week, now monitoring and fixing of Claude. Now we're sending talk. And I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe there's more series coming in our future. We'll see.
there is.
We'll see.
There is.
Have a good weekend, man.
You
See you
too.
next
All
Friday.
right. See you next week.
Cheers.